Let's just do it, right?
Okay. I like to have two.
What page should we leave on?
XXVII.
Oh. All right, so we're in the doctor's opinion. We'll continue to be in the doctor's opinion for probably how many pages? Yeah, 5 years possibly. No, we're gonna get. Also, real quick, let me just be clear. So we are not here to represent any specific 12-step fellowship. We are just talking about this book and the 12 steps, and we do not represent AA, CA, DAA, NA, any of the things. Just as that disclaimer. Okay, let's go. If any feel that a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics who appears somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work, and even of their sleeping moments, and the most cynical will not wonder why we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years' experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. I love like how much Silkworth is like giving us his heart here. You know what I mean? Like it's just really vulnerable. Like we are so heartbreaking to doctors and it continues to be that way. Like I'm someone who has worked in treatment on and off since 2014, right? February 20th, 2014. And even as a drug addict, even as an alcoholic, even as someone who like has the solution in my hand spoon fed to me, understanding the disease, understanding all these different things, I cannot like this is the part that most people who have gone to treatment like don't know. I can't tell you how many nights I've cried myself to sleep right after watching a girl leave. I have a list of names in my book of all of my loved ones who have passed away from this disease, and I have a sub list of all of my clients who have died over the years. And I mean just heartbreaking. And we can all talk about boundaries and we can all talk about like professionalism. And at the end of the day, we're all fucking people, right? And that includes the normies. That includes like the normie therapist. They'd be like, she can't understand me. Like she is, here's my thing with normie therapists in treatment, right? Just like Self-Worth and all these other psychologists is like, as an addict and an alcoholic, I'm kind of like, I am built to love you, right? I'm built to have compassion. I have this experience. Of course, I understand. These people have absolutely no obligation to show up for us. And they spent not just their hearts, but their money, invested years of school to be able to help us. Where, like, they could really, like, what's a choice? Just say no. You know what I mean? Like, they could, but they don't. And that's pretty fucking and so, like, I imagine it's so funny how, again, it just happens over and over and over throughout this book. They're sitting here saying the same things that we hear today, almost 100 fucking years later, right? Even the most cynical would understand why we accept this movement. Because finally we're watching these people who just continue to die and drop into oblivion. They finally have something that's fucking working. So just go with it. Like, I don't care. How does it work? I don't care. Just fucking go with it. Let's just watch some people not die, honestly. Y'all got anything on that? Gang. Okay. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Novel fucking idea. Who would have ever thought? The sensation is so elusive that, while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. That highlight that, underline that, right? Like, what is my issue is I cannot differentiate true from the false. And that's why we say that, like, the mental obsession is rooted in delusion. The mental obsession is not just sitting there, like, hoping and wishing and scheming and conniving of how I'm going to get drunk or how I'm going to get high. Or it is the lies that I tell myself that convince me to get fucked up, right? And a lot of times I'm not aware of those things. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. Is that true for you?
Yeah.
Or was it? You know what I mean? I don't know about y'all, but I look at people who are sober or just like normies or like just didn't like to drink. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know? What do you do? Right?
Uh, to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. It was so funny. My wife and I went to the movie. A normal activity people do, go in the movie theater. It was the first time in decades, and I mean decades, I did not sneak alcohol in. I actually saw a movie sober. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. That's the first time in decades. Yeah, I know. What I did,
in your purse.
6 packs and about a pint of vodka to go in the Powerade. I was just, I didn't waste my time with beer. Just a waste.
Real deal.
But yeah, I just had Powerade and popcorn.
And nothing was in the Powerade?
No.
Nothing.
Ice. Just ice.
The Powerade.
Yeah. First time I'd seen a movie sober, including on TV, in decades.
So
It's the
good.
weirdest thing.
Was it a good movie?
It was a great movie, actually.
And you remembered all of
I
it.
remembered all of it, yeah. Yeah. I didn't have to turn and be like, what'd they say?
Addiction, active alcoholism. I think about these things and they seem so mundane. They seem so boring. Like how am I going to go to the fair and not smoke weed in a porta potty? How am I going to go to the fair and not have a fifth of vodka on me that I pour into my little alien cup that I get and I go on all the rides and I think no one can smell it? If I couldn't get loaded at any kind of event, why would I go?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like fucking torture.
Yeah.
And to people who are able to, it's just bizarre to me. Like I don't get them, you know? And like my heart hurts just thinking in like at that time period in my life, my heart would hurt just thinking about them just like doing life, you know, on an everyday basis. Like how? Why? Not even how. Why? Sounds miserable. I bet you're miserable. I bet you're fucking miserable.
Enjoy life, period, because it got in the way of my drinking. So you go to the fair. You do any of these things.
Why waste the money? I can lay home and drink a lot cheap.
Because it's annoying.
Yeah.
100%. And just even the idea of like that's parallel to any kind of normalcy is me not being able to differentiate true from false. The idea of I'm not hurting anyone for myself. I cannot differentiate true from false. The idea of like no one knows. I'm keeping this super under wraps. Like Dr. Bob, I can't go make amends because I'm an alcoholic. Everyone knows.
Knew you were an alcoholic, yeah.
Everyone fucking knows, weirdo. That's so funny because when it comes to like anonymity in the rooms and shit, we do this thing where it's like everyone knew I was a dope fiend and drunk, but I don't want anyone to know that I'm sober. It's the funniest thing. I want everyone to know, you know? Cannot differentiate true from false. And I'll just also say that it's not isolated to just in regard to getting loaded, right? That I don't believe that there's any such thing as an isolated incident. Everything is connected. This puck is connected to everything.
Like I think that has to do with the mindset that I'm in during the time. Like when I'm delusional about drugs and alcohol and whether I can eat or not, I'm also delusional about everything that I'm powerless or not powerless over.
Yeah.
To like, men, food, everything.
Yep.
It's just it encompasses everything.
100%. I'm not hurting anybody.
Right.
This is normal. This is fine. I'm under control. Might have, whatever. Just all the things, right?
I'm not going to end up in jail this time.
Never. Not me.
No one will pull over a little ginger in a Jeep.
I'm physically present, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't that bad. Because it just seems like the only normal way to navigate. So what's it supposed to do, right? They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. What does impunity mean?
Without effect, basically.
Without consequences, right? Like punitive punishment.
Right.
No
Right.
worries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can just drink. No big deal. They can have a glass of wine at dinner and then go enjoy the movie and remember all of it. And I'm like, don't be a dick, right? You bring a water bottle full of fucking vodka like my mom said.
I used to take my water bottle to the gym, Planet Fitness, and it was Powerade and vodka.
I'm so fit.
Day treadmill.
I'm drunk at the fitness.
It's lack of it's
Lack of,
you know it's
we just get like more resentful.
right. Like how dare
It's
these
not fair.
people get to do
Especially at that age, because you're just turning. You're like, I've earned the right to drink now, and now I can't. Shit.
Earned. I aged.
It's about wine, so you know.
And that's how it worked, because the truth is I of getting fucked up, and I was just so upset, and that should have been like a very clear indicator that I was not going to stay sober, right? Because the truth is I allowed myself to sit in it. I think it's really normal to go through that process, especially when you get sober young, which a lot of people do, and a lot of people stay sober. I know it's really hard, and I'll never take that away from anybody. And it's normal to go through those parts of it, but what's important is what we do with it, right? And that can be any stage of life too. It's like, I've worked my whole life. I deserve to just sit down and have a glass of wine. It's like, you're right, you do deserve that. However, your brain doesn't give a fuck. You deserve
Right.
It doesn't care what you want. It doesn't care about your desires, your needs. It's gonna take you the fuck out, right? So drinks which they see others taking with impunity after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope for his recovery. And
It's
this
the
is
cycle.
why I wish I had a whiteboard. Someone asked me the other day in a different fitness center that I was doing, like, why, or maybe it was here. I have no idea. It's all getting very mixed up to me now. But like, why is it that we say like consequences and these different parts where it doesn't actually say it in the cycle here? And my response to that is like the cycle of addiction that like we do and a lot of us do, specifically like at treatment centers. The way that I say is we take this information from all over the book, right? So it's just like step one condensed from more about alcoholism. There's a solution, Bill's story, doctor's opinion, all that shit, right? So there's going to be stuff in there that we don't necessarily see in here. Mental obsession, right? It doesn't even say mental obsession. It's implied, right? I cannot differentiate true from false. So when we look at it, I put mental obsession on a whiteboard. If I was to have it right here, I'd say, okay, mental obsession is what? The lies I tell myself. What is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker? Which we find on a different page. What is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker?
That they'll be able to drink like normal.
The idea that somehow, someday, we'll be able to control inner joy or drinking, right? Can't do it. Doesn't make sense. It's a lie I tell myself. So obsessing on that is me not being able to differentiate truth from false.
That's what happens to me a lot in dry spells, and that is exactly what leads to the mental obsession with me. Is I, like you said, like I become resentful, and I'm like, why, like, why the hell do I have to work these steps and be a good person when my friends are out drinking and doing this, and then like when I'm not spiritually fit, that crops up.
We get to like the it's not fair thing. When again, it's like they get to do all these things. I have to do this work to be a decent human. Me not being able to differentiate true from false in that is like when I actually look at my history, and as like a clinician would say, I'm a bad historian. Right? Like, it was fun. It wasn't that bad. We had a good time. I'm a really good Delphine. I'm good at what I do. Like, let me just, if I can just, and then it goes, if I can just use for a day, if I can just use for a couple days, just get it out, and then I go, maybe a week, maybe just a few weeks, not a year.
Something wrong. Smoking a little bit of weed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
When people tell me they go and they like to smoke weed, I'm like, I'm all for it, you know? If you
Yeah.
can go and do that, like,
Legalize
you know,
it, man.
absolutely. Chronic
for it.
pain gone, you know?
Do it.
Great. I cannot.
I'm allergic.
Yep.
So for my mom, right, her thing was always, I've worked my whole life. Fact. Right? Let's look at facts. I've worked my whole life. Fact. I worked my ass off. Fact. She's on her feet all day, every day, just trying to like keep us afloat, right? Fact. I love my daughter more than anything. Fact. Right? I deserve a glass of wine at the end of the night. Sure. Delusion that you're just having a glass of wine. It's still a bottle, even though you're just topping it off, and the glass never empties. Okay? Still a bottle or two every night.
It's transport.
It drinks that much. I've only had one glass. I'm like, I've watched you. Like, poor. You know what I mean? And this is one of the ways I honor her is just like using her story to help illuminate this stuff, right? Because it makes sense. And most normal people would agree. You do deserve that glass of wine. And then she dies at 54 from cirrhosis. Like, that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what happens. Because it doesn't matter if it's fair or not. Like, guys, thank God fucking life isn't fair. Because if life was fair, I would have spent 10 years in prison. Right? If life was fair, I wouldn't be alive. If life was fair, I would be in life, and it's not fair. But we don't look at all the ways that life not being fair has actually been, and we've been completely fucking privileged, right? And that's where like balance and perception comes into play. Look at the obsession, right? I'm looking at other people drinking with impunity. I am obsessing. I am feeling gypped in life, right? I cannot differentiate true from false. When we talk about powerlessness of step one, this is what we're talking about. And the mind, right, is the crux of the problem. Is my thoughts. It's the mental obsession. That's where I have no choice. Once I succumb to that desire, as so many do, and the phenomena of craving develops, that's what happens inside my body. So for the physical allergy, that is where I have little to no control. So I have no choice over the first one and no control once it's in me. That's fucking powerless, right? I have a mind that convinces me that I need to drink and a body that does not allow me to do so successfully. It's really frustrating, right? And we go on a spree, a binge, whatever. How long does a spree last?
However long until, you know,
Yeah,
until life.
until consequences.
Right.
Which is why we input
You know,
that there. 100%.
Hospital visit, too much.
There's no timestamp on the spree, right?
2 weeks, 2 months, 3 years.
Rapid cycling, you can, like, I was just reading Dr. Bob's story earlier today, and he said, like, this continued for 17 years of him, like, knowing when he can drink, how much he can drink, what he has to do in order to get money to continue drinking. 17 fucking years. That is long. That is a long time. We are so smart. We are so resourceful. Imagine if we took that energy and put it into something productive.
That perplexes me, and that's why I'm grateful that I'm getting sober at a young age, because, like, you know, I have saved years of my life, you know, just because I escalated so fast in my addiction, and like all of a sudden I was like face down on the floor, you know, like it was like one day I was smoking weed and I was fine, and then like it just happened at the blink of an eye.
I've been fighting this disease for 35 years now. So
Absolutely, yeah. And it's always so interesting because a lot of times, like, the young ones, like the more mature people in treatment will look at the young ones and be so mad and so frustrated, and they're like, "Do you want to keep doing this at my age?" And the young ones, their mental obsession says, "I'm immortal," right? I'm like, I'm not going to be you.
Yeah.
And then it's not just
That's
young
not
ones. No, I know. It's all right,
Yeah.
but this is so, it's the same conversation. It's the same anger. It's the same resentment. It is the same delusion that it's not going to be me. with different faces and different voices over and over and over until I watched this one become this one.
Right.
And then the cycle continues, right? And it's like I was 21 the first time I got sober, 25 this last time I got sober. And I have friends who got sober when they were 50, or they were 40, or they were 70. That's been some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life. I think you have an
I don't
idea.
think at that age I would have bothered.
Because that's the thing too, is a lot of times we either I'm too young or I'm too set in my ways. What's the point? The obsession will always evolve with us. It will continue because no one knows how to trick me like my own brain. Nothing knows me better. Nothing knows my weaknesses. Nothing knows my fears better than me. It's fact.
Well, my wife this weekend had said, she's like, your alcoholism is like a birthmark. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life.
That's a fact.
You know, that's what I was thinking about too when my boss was like, we've all been young once, and it's like I have like suffered from this disease so immensely in the like 5 years that I've been suffering with it. I know that I will always pick up and drink again if I do not stay spiritually fit and work, you know, appropriate. If I'm not putting my relationship with God first, like always.
Yeah.
Well,
No matter what
it's
age
just
I
the
am.
only thing this is.
Yeah.
Such a
I was young once
Yeah,
too.
you could do that.
It's like, yeah, I'm young and
Yeah, when I know that someone's really gotten step one, like working in treatment, is when they get. I'm thinking of one really specifically, but they'll get like a card from a supportive, well-meaning family member, very sweet, and the card says like some hallmark shit that says "mind over matter," you know.
Yeah.
You're strong, yeah. You'll have will. Oh, they don't get it. But you do. And that's pretty fucking neat. They don't have to get it, right? Like, they really don't. They're not going to die from it. You are, right? Like, you're the one who needs to get it. And you got it. Fuck yeah.
And it's just like the book said, the mind is just as sick as the body. So the mind over matter doesn't equate.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If it was a matter of willpower, then fucking, just try harder. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Where the card says, "You got this."
Yeah. Every time someone, and a lot of us get this, and it's sweet. Again, it's sweet, but it's just like, because I always think about, like, I think about the newcomer that's always the thing, or someone who's actively in addiction and alcoholism that might be around and that might hear it. And they're like, wow, you're so strong. And I'm like, no. I'm actually, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, seriously, I was a basket case my whole fucking life, just like terrible, terrible, terrible stuff. It was this that enabled me to tap into that placed me in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. It's not because I'm smart. It's not because I'm strong. It's not because are those things true? 100%. But as it relates to alcoholism and addiction, no, had nothing to fucking do with it. I was willing, and that was it. Right? I was desperate enough, and that was it. And that's why we call it the gift of desperation. Right? This is repeated over and over. Unless a person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope for his recovery. What does psychic mean?
Psyche is mind, body, and soul, basically.
Psychic is of or relating to the mind. It's all about the brain. But I 100% believe that the mind is the heart mind, which is all of the things. It's all connected, right? So I wrote here, think, feel, and react differently. Later on in the book, it talks about we have a whole new attitude and outlook upon life, right? So that's what we're going for. The other word for that would be the spiritual awakening, right? So this is I put here a doctor's understanding of the spiritual awakening. And I also put, when I put dope in my body, it changes the way that I think, feel, and act. It is a psychic change. To stay sober, I need a psychic change from the steps, right? And you'll find all these parallels throughout the book between getting good and staying sober, right? So on the other hand, and as strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. So that is a promise. There are a lot of promises in the book, a lot of meetings that you go to, they'll have a list of the promises and they'll read the promises at the beginning of the meeting, which leaves a lot of people very confused, right? And it makes sense because it's the only time that it explicitly says, are these extravagant promises?
You think
not.
So fucking programmed. They're being fulfilled in months.
Sometimes quickly.
Sometimes
slowly.
Right. So we don't do that. But here we are doing it. But no, 100%, right? So then the newcomer's sitting there and they're confused because they're halfway through the meeting. Like, I'm still very afraid of people. Right? I feel none of these promises coming.
Worry about money all the time.
Right. So why is it so confusing? What are they leaving out that's so important about those promises?
You have to do it.
What are those promises referring to?
The psychic change.
No.
Believe in your higher power.
Nope.
Doing it. Taking action.
Nope. It's very specific. What step?
Oh.
9-step promises, y'all.
Oh, you're talking about you mean what we read in the beginning. Oh,
We're
yeah.
all like, okay, just say it.
Just say it.
What are you talking
They're the 9-step
We're
promises, right?
addicts. You want the quick and easy answer?
I know. I'm not going to give it to you. Because I love you. So on page 83, right, we just spent all these pages in action talking about how to make amends. They give us all of these little cheat sheets like, oh, you have financial amends? Here's how you do that. Oh, you have amends involving crime? Let's talk about it. Oh, you got an ex-wife that you owe alimony to? Let's fucking talk about it. You got all this different shit. Great. Did you cheat? Right. I have it all like categorized in my book. I'm like, oh, because I'm like, well, do you feel too much? I don't know. I was supposed to say, let's find out. Oh, here it is. Right? After it gives us all of these things on how to make amends, then it says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, it's very specific. They are about the 9-step, right? So we're not going to read all the way through it because we will later, in later days.
In a year.
2026.
And then on the next page, they tell us how to do a 10-step. And it says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. Those are the 10-step promises. And the 3rd step, right before we actually read the 3rd step, it gives us a bunch of promises. The way that it was taught to me is that anytime it says explicitly, if you do this, then this will happen, it's a promise.
Okay.
Right? So, or just like explicitly, this is going to happen. So this is the doctor, right? Suddenly finds himself able to control the only effort necessary being that required a few simple rules. So there's a condition. Where are the rules? It's not your question.
In this book.
Yeah, the rules are the steps, the principles, right? Very simple. Hard at times, yeah. Daunting, 100%. Is it always easy? No. Simple as shit.
Very.
So fucking simple. Stop overcomplicating it. That's what it's like what we were talking about last week. Like when you're on step 1 for a month, what the fuck are you doing? Last week.
We talked about it and then we said the prayer.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We talked about step 1 for a while. Like, check, you got it, man. You got a higher power. Awesome. Great. You know, I need to understand what I'm saying. So if I'm going to say a prayer, I need to really know what it is that I'm committing to, because step 3 is a commitment to do the rest of the work, right? So let me go ahead. Okay, let's hear it. Okay, here's how to do the 4-step. See you in a week. Have this done. Right? And that's what we did. It was great. So what the fuck are you doing on step 3 for a week?
Oh, that shit. I can't.
Well, that's the thing too. Is that like I will say, and like I said last time, if you've been around for a little bit, we're gonna go deeper, right? But if you're like actively in the mental obsession and like white not going to stay sober, we need to fucking move.
Yeah.
We ain't got the fucking time, right? So Anyway, yeah, stop overcomplicating it. It's not that fucking serious. So it says, men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Fuck, I forgot to say this real quick. On that last paragraph, one of the things that we hear a lot in any of the rooms, right, is this is a program of suggestions, not musts. There is something that we must do. News to me, funny enough. What the book says is this program is suggested. If you take the suggestion,
You must
you
work
must
it.
have a successful consummation. Must do, right? So I don't get to 12 steps, but they didn't work when really you prayed a little bit. You're like, yeah, I'm powerless. You went to fucking 3 meetings a day. You wrote a 4-step, never wrote a 4th column, read it a little bit, made a couple amends, never heard of a fucking 10-step meditation. Who is she? Right? Like, never was willing to do the things, never sponsored a soul in your fucking life, because, I mean, why would you? You have literally not done any of the rest of the stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, 12 steps don't count. Bullshit. The amount of sponsees I've told, I'm like, hey, I just want to be clear. I think I said this last week. I just want to be clear that you're not doing the 12 steps. So if and when you relapse, I just want you to be clear. That's not that this didn't work for you. That's it. I just want you to know so that you don't have a bad taste in your mouth thinking that, like, oh, well, I tried. Did you? You know what I mean?
Did you really?
And literally no judgment, no shade, because fucking same. I have also just like towed the line of working a 12-step program. Like, I'm miserable. This isn't working anymore.
I mean,
It didn't work.
if I take half measures, I might as well be taking no measures.
100%.
I can't half-ass it. Like I can't. If I, it's just like if I, choose to hold on to things and not give up control everything. I haven't surrendered. Point blank. Period. I
You
haven't.
just gotta do. You just gotta do the whole thing.
It's not
I
like
always
I
like.
just- yeah.
I always like the saying, "Half measures don't even avail us half."
Yeah.
That's. You know what I mean?
Like you spun the wheels for nothing to get nowhere.
Just do the whole thing, man. Worst case scenario. You go back to drinking. You go back to using. Worst case scenario, you got some time under your belt to, like, you know what I mean? Like, take a break. Had a stable home to live in, a roof over your head, made some friends. Best case scenario, you learn how to be happy, joyous, and free and content for the rest of your fucking life. What do you got to lose? Literally, what do you have to lose? I always love the saying, too. Like, this program is 100% guaranteed. If you don't like it, we'll refund all of your misery with interest. You know, you can have it all back. It's not a big deal. Anyway.
We also get to learn who you truly are and what you actually truly like.
And that takes a while, though, right? So for the ones who, like, tiptoe around and then they go out shortly thereafter, you didn't even get to have the experience. But yes, if you stick around, like, learning who you are, which is daunting. That's so scary. The scariest question that anyone ever asked me in early sobriety is, what do you like to do?
I see that opposite. I've had so much fun.
Yeah?
Figuring out who I am. And
Yeah.
like,
In early sobriety? That excited you? You didn't feel scared, nervous, that you had no
right
idea?
out of treatment, yes.
Right.
But then,
In treatment.
So crisis is real.
So I started asking girls while they were in treatment.
oh, I know.
I like to drink.
I like to paint. I personally like to finger paint. Dead ass. I'm not even fucking with you. My inner child runs so fucking deep that she's just here for it. Like, Brett, fucking go. And then I'm upset after because I'm like, yeah, I have to shower. I gotta shower today. I don't like shower. Such a fucking child. I like to write. I like to make music. I like to read. I like to do a lot of things that I didn't know I liked to do, which is pretty fucking. Okay. Okay. How much we've barely. Oh my god. Okay, let's keep going. So, I have everything to live. Required, necessary. That's why I said that. Anyway, I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Such an important thing. Like, this person is even like acknowledging that they have every reason to stay sober and to live for, and they just fucking can't, right? No matter how great the necessity or wish, it just doesn't matter. Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, herself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, is often not enough. This is still the truth, guys. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from the psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. Again, this is still true. Like, when I have seen someone use and drink like I did, I don't know that I've ever seen them just go to therapy. Never, I just don't see it, right? And then I had, it's such a hard thing because, like, I'm not trying to sit here and look at people who have had like honest drug problems and like honest like drinking problems and them just like get sober and like one of us can't. If you were able to stop just from talk therapy and some trauma therapy, I mean, I've been in that my whole life. I was born addicted to crack. I've been in therapy since I was in kindergarten. You know what I mean? And I'm still a fucking drug addict. It is hard because a lot of people do use because they have unresolved trauma and they don't know how to deal with life, and then they address the trauma, and then they're just not one of us, right? For me, I address the trauma, and somehow I get worse. I don't, you know what I mean?
I address mine with a
Right. And I'm like, opens up all this shit. Like, just, I can't differentiate true from false. My primary diagnosis is alcoholism and drug addiction. So it's really hard for other kinds of therapies to be effective when I am still drowning in the mental obsession. Right? I'm still in this delusional state with this primary diagnosis that other things aren't going to fix it. Right? Do I think that the 12 steps are the only way to alleviate the mental obsession? No. I mean, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that that's just really arrogant, right? I used to say yes, and now I think that that's arrogant. Have I found any other way that has helped me? No. And like I said last week, this is supposed to be the last house on the block. You know what I mean? You try out shit and it doesn't work, and you come here and look at you. You're fucking sober forever, and that's great. But again, it comes with not just working the steps, but practicing the principles in all your affairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's something that a lot of us miss, and that's the psychic change. Like, if I work the steps, but I use it as a check off, right? I'm not like looking at my corrective measures. I'm not actually like sponsoring women. I'm not doing all these things. I'm not living up to spiritual principles. Right? I go to a meeting, I get there, a little bit early maybe, and then I just talk to my friends who have like the same amount of time sober as me, and I look around at people and I judge them, and we sit in a meeting, we sit together, and we don't talk to anyone else. Fuck a newcomer. Who the fuck is that? Who is she? Who cares?
Text the whole time.
Text the whole time. We leave the meeting. We just hang out together. I'm just on a friend date and a support group where I'm not being or getting support. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is the point, right? I'm just gossiping and talking shit. I have not had a psychic change. I'm still acting like a fucking dope fiend. I'm just in a meeting. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So if I'm to have a drastic psychic change, which will drastically change my life, I have to check myself and have humans around me that'll check me of like, am I living up to these principles, right? When we talk about spiritual principles, and I just think that it's like universal law, right? Like, when I'm honest and when I'm kind and when I'm genuine and when I'm authentic and when I'm generous and loving and forgiving, I get relief. When I'm dishonest, when I'm mean, when I'm cruel, when I'm talking shit and dragging people through the fucking mud all the time and actively causing harm, and then not going back and trying to fix it, because Jade can tell you, I'm fucking guilty. She saw me throw a fucking tantrum the other day at work. I fucking threw all the trays that you put the jugs on. It's true. Fine, I am kind, I am even God.
Eating in the men.
I am so restless, irritable, discontent. I hate this person. It still shows up. And I'm aware of it. And I honestly don't want to show up that way. Right? And like, I try to go back to the people that I'm like, I'm sorry. What's wrong with me? And I'm still a human. I'm still going to fuck up. Right? Like, and I'll always own that. I'm not going to walk around and be like, oh, we just,
Exactly.
principles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I am the best. You mean that's fucking bullshit? No, I'm not.
Progress, not perfection.
Spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, 100%. Because if I say, well, at least I didn't drink, I ain't really. We were just talking about that. I'm not really progressing because I'm not looking at how do I go back and fix it. Right? We get to ownership today, and that's a really fucking. It's a big deal, right? And I think that I don't know why it is that we have to tap into this power source in order to be able to work through that. And a lot of people say, well, you don't have to. And there's a lot of atheists and it's a lot of secular stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's great for them. I personally, and a lot of the people that I know who have long-term sobriety, have not been able to do this without getting connected to something, right? And again, can't be a doorknob. That's silly. What? Who? What? Who made that up, right? Can't be you people, right? Because you're gonna fucking fail me, and I have really unrealistic expectations for humans. What's me? It's not gonna work. I'm gonna get drunk tonight. Your reliance is on you. And it's not because you're not great, it's because I'm crazy. Right? You know what I mean? If my reliance is on my dog, he is a dick.
I'm so dead.
Dobby is an asshole. I can tell you.
You've been asking to meet Dobby forever.
Meet the dog.
He's
Instead of meet
such a
the
dick.
parents, it's meet the dog.
Let's be real, right? People die. People move. Dogs. All of it. Like, that cannot be. And every time I talk to someone, it's like,
You gotta be an everlasting pal.
exactly. That's beyond my conception, right? And, like, being able to get down with the fact that, like, I don't know. Like, yes, science can explain everything, right? It really can, for the most part. For the most
I
part.
don't even know.
But what the fuck underlies science? And for someone with migraine, right?
Yeah.
What underlies science? How did we get here? Well, life just happens. Life, it finds a way. Right? You know what I mean? Like,
Big
well, and I'm like, listen, I believe in the Big Bang Theory. What put the first atom there? You're telling me that this entire universe came from nothing. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Literally no sense. I don't get it. Like, I can get down with evolution. Who started it? What? Not even who. What? No one knows. Maybe stop fucking taking out the God idea.
Where does the universe end? What
I
is
don't. We
beyond
can go into
the
a
okay,
whole
sorry.
philosophical thing, right? And we'll talk
Having a
about
little
it
bit of
in step 2.
Jesus.
Okay, so right, so even the doctors back then were like, listen, this is a time in history when they're like, God, we don't do this anymore, right? And they're starting to get away from the church a little bit, and then it like brings them kind of back because they're like, this is the only thing that's working. We're not doing it. We're not fixing this problem, right? So I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. I have had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months in some problem or business deal, which was to be settled on a certain date favorably to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to that date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met. These men were not drinking to escape, they were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. Highlight that, underline that, whatever you gotta do. This is to me, one of the most important parts in the doctor's opinion, right? Because all the time, why'd you relapse? I went through a divorce. Why'd you relapse? My anxiety. Why did you relapse? To escape. Because I couldn't deal with my feelings. Normies deal with that all the time. It's not just us. We are not terminally fucking unique where it's like, oh, life happened. I just couldn't handle it. And that's why I'm an alcoholic. No, that happens to everybody. Everyone goes through adversity. Everyone goes through heartbreak. Everyone goes through grief. I was not drinking to escape. I was drinking to overcome a craving beyond my mental control. Period. Oh, God, it's so good. Like, thank you. There are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving, which cause people to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. What is the supreme sacrifice?
Say that one time real quick.
What's the supreme sacrifice?
Yeah, but what was the
The
part of that? Yeah.
There are situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving, which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight.
To not turn to alcohol.
To make the supreme sacrifice, then continue to fight.
It's suicide.
Oh, okay.
Not all of us die from drunk driving and from overdoses or cirrhosis. A lot of us die from suicide. A lot.
It's a painful existence when you're
Right.
Yeah.
We're so fucking baffled. We want to stop so fucking bad, and we keep doing it. Why? And no one's giving us answers. They're telling us that to just stay sober one day at a time, just keep coming back. Don't worry about the steps. Just share in a meeting. Sharing about your problems has always kept you sober. Acceptance is the answer to all your problems today, and one day at a time. And all this bullshit that doesn't do anything. And that's even now with the rooms, right? And imagine back then when there was actually none of this that people could actually go to. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And all the psychologists, you got Young, you got Silkworth, you got all these people that are like,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying, but you gotta be locked up for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're gonna die. That's your only option. They're talking to wives. They're talking to wives because the women that are alcoholics, they just fucking locked up and called them neurotic and crazy. That's beside the point, right? Talking to wives like, sorry, your husband's good. Total loss. Off. Nothing you can do. Just kill themselves, and we still have that today. It's still very, very real. Have we made a dent? 100%. Would the dent be greater if we stuck to the actual solution instead of giving shitty one-liners to people that don't actually explain what's wrong and don't actually tell them what to do to stay sober? Absolutely. Right. Okay. Well, I think, funny enough, this is where we stop at a different meeting. So I think that's a great place.
At least we got to the next page.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. That was the hope. Yes. I think right here too. Fighting to stay sober is not sustainable. If you're fighting to stay sober at years sober, you're missing something. There's nothing wrong with you, but we have to go back and take an inventory of what we're not doing so that you can just be like.
I was talking to somebody today and they said, it's a fight every day, isn't it? And I said, well, no, it's not supposed to be. It has been for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Well,